Hi, I'm Keith. Today we're going to be taking a look at the 10 millimeter cartridge and the different variants of firearms that you can get them chambered in. 10 millimeter, being originally designed in the early 80s for the FBI, was a great cartridge. It just kind of fell into this particular area for a while where it had a little too much recoil for certain folks that were not firearms enthusiasts. So over time, the 10 millimeter has resurgence, and people have seemed to really take hold of it, which is a good thing because the 10 millimeter has a very wide variety of applications. You can slow the cartridge down, and you can actually make it 11, 1200 feet per second, fun for target shooting. Keep in mind, the 40 Smith & Wesson derived from the 10 millimeter cartridge that folks had difficulty qualifying with. So they basically made the 40 Smith & Wesson, which was an acceptable cartridge for the FBI, law enforcement for many years. And the 10 millimeter has had its resurgence and is on its way back. And now you even see more manufacturers producing their firearms in 10 millimeter. Things such as Ruger Blackhawk, chambered in 10 millimeter and 40 Smith & Wesson. This is single action, so if you want to go to the shooting range, you can shoot a very cost-effective 40 Smith & Wesson out of it. You can change your cylinder, put the 10 millimeter in if you're going to actually use it for protection in, say, bear country. Kimber Firearms. Kimber's brought back out this, I believe it's a Custom 2 GFO. It was one of their special editions. They chambered it in 45, and they chambered it in 10 millimeter. The 10 millimeter magazines feed exceptional. There's been no issues that I've had with the Kimber. Once you break them in, they're extremely reliable. The triggers are phenomenal on them. They come with a high-vis fiber optic sight up front. Very comfortable weapons. Moving on, Glock is one of the few companies that held on to their 10 millimeter. Colt made the Delta Elite, and I don't believe they ever went out of production. They continued to produce it, and they were one of the few manufacturers that continued 10 millimeter even when it was not a popular caliber. Glock produced the Glock 20, which is the full-size chambered at 10 millimeter, and this is the Glock 29 with, I believe, a lone wolf drop-in barrel with the compensator on the end. I have several 10 millimeters, and I really enjoy the variety of shooting. This is one of the most recent additions is the Smith & Wesson M&P 4-inch 10 millimeter with thumb safety. I put the Holosun 407C on it. I'm a thumb safety fan because I used the 1911 with the thumb safety, and I don't want to mess with my muscle memory, so I prefer thumb safeties. This one here, what I noticed is it's extremely lightweight. It comes with suppressor height sights, and if you shoot some heavier charged 10 millimeters in it, you do notice the recoil quite a bit. It is a very light weapon, very concealable. However, follow-up shots are a little more difficult than some of your heavy guns, such as the Kimber. It's all steel. Steel frame, steel slide. The Glock itself is capable of shooting hard cast ammunition, should you be in bear country. They call the Glock 20 the backpacker's friend. It is very capable. It is a very reliable weapon. It needs minimum maintenance. You can also use the Glock 20 magazine in the Glock 29, which makes it quite versatile. The new guns here in 10 millimeter, they started adding the optics, which is a phenomenal addition, and the suppressor height sights, assuming you'll change the barrel out and put a suppressor barrel on. 1911s, chambered in 10 millimeter. The magazines are easy to get. They're located pretty much from Wilson Combat, Ed Brown, Chip McCormick. All of them have phenomenal track records. I'm not a big fan of some OEM manufacturer magazines. I suggest before you use any of these weapons in personal defense capacities, you make sure you break in your 1911s, 300 to 400 rounds through them, run the ammo that you're going to carry. Whether you're going to carry hard cast in bear country or you're going to carry hollow points for two-legged bad guys, you want to make sure that it will function and cycle properly depending on the magazine you're using. So don't forget to break the Kimbers in. The Glocks, you can almost forego that. If you're a Glock person, you know that Glocks need very, very little maintenance and do not need essentially zero break-in period. The Smith & Wesson, I've had this gun up for probably 200 rounds to it so far. I've had zero issues, zero problems. The only noticeable thing that I've noticed with the Smith & Wesson M&P 10 millimeter and 4-inch is there is a lot of recoil with this weapon. A lot more than the 20 or the 29. The Blackhawk, single action 10 millimeter and 40 Smith & Wesson. This gun here it'll last you a lifetime. It's solid stainless steel. It's very heavy. I believe it's 40 odd ounces. Your 1911 here is about 39-ish ounces. And I believe your 29 comes in right around mid 20 ounces. And this one I believe is 24. But once you add on your optics and things such as that, you add the weight up. Keep in mind, that's all unloaded. The 10 millimeter cartridge is a heavy cartridge. Not as heavy as 45, but it's heavy. A lot of folks have chosen the 9 millimeter as their staple, and they believe it is the best choice for them. There's no denying that 9 millimeter allows for follow-up shots much faster than the 10 millimeter. However, the 10 millimeter is a larger cartridge and does require a little more practice with. But the 9 millimeter cartridge in itself, if you look at the difference in size, there's your 9 millimeter and here's your 10 millimeter. So you can see that there's quite a difference in the cartridge size. I like to say the 10 millimeter is the only millimeter. So for certain folks that feel they're very comfortable with the 9 millimeter, it's an outstanding personal defense round. It has a higher capacity, and if it's what they're looking for and they're comfortable with it, that's outstanding that they are in the firearms market and they're comfortable with their weapon. However, if you would like something, say, with more stopping power, here is a Speer Gold .LE 9 millimeter chambered in 124 round plus P. It has 293 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. Travels about 225, 250 feet per second. So that's 124 grain. On the other hand, here's a 150 grain 10 millimeter. It travels 1,500 feet per second. It runs just under 700 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. So you're talking double the muzzle energy, over double the muzzle energy of that 9 millimeter with increased mass of bullet coming out. So the 10 millimeter has a wide variety of cartridges that's available for it. 9 millimeter has 115, 124, 147. You can pick and choose your 10 millimeter on what you're going to do with it, what its intended purpose is, and you can fine tune your 10 millimeter. It gives basically you the ability to buy a 10 millimeter and allow that weapon to possibly do 3 or 4 jobs where the 9 millimeter just doesn't have that capability. 9 millimeter has, like I said, excellent capacity, usually has excellent expansion. However, after shooting guns 35 years, I can truly tell you that the 10 millimeter cartridge, if you were looking for an effective personal defense round that can do a wide variety of things, the 10 millimeter pretty much is the cartridge you'd be looking for. The ammo is not expensive. Underwood makes phenomenal stuff, custom made to your desire, whatever you're going to do with it. They make penetrator rounds, which are pure copper. They make hollow points and full metal jackets and a wide variety of powder charges and bullet weights, hard cast. So, and keep in mind, if you're going to have a personal defense weapon in your home, you could always slow it down, 1,200 feet per second, 500 foot-pounds of muzzle energy, so it doesn't tear through your house. And then when you go to bear country, you could change your magazine out, load in cast ammunition, which will give you, say, a 220 grain cast or a 200 grain cast 10 millimeter, which could give you up to 26 inches of penetration, which you definitely would need if you have a large game animal charging bear, something like that at you. A 9 millimeter just would not have that penetration to get you that thick high. So having said that, I think we've covered pretty much everything with the 10 millimeter, that it is certainly on the resurgence. I would highly recommend you give it a try. Start out with a larger firearm, such as the 10 millimeter 1911 steel. You could always try the Glock 20 or 29. The recoil, I think, is a little exaggerated. The Smith & Wesson M&P, as I had said, this does have a little more recoil than the Glocks. However, it is ergonomically, this weapon is phenomenal. It is built, the quality is extremely high. It is just came out. The trigger is much improved over the last series of M&P. I would trust my life with any one of these weapons, or I wouldn't have them. So that pretty much wraps it up for 10 millimeter. I would say give it a try. Give it a try. Try some of your target ammunition in 10 millimeter. If you're comfortable with it, that's great, and that opens up a whole new world of firearms that are chambered in 10 millimeter. Certain 1911s. Maybe you're not a 45 guy. Maybe you certainly don't want to spend the money for 38 Super. Well, then you can switch to 9 millimeter 1911 or the 10 millimeter, which I've had the 9 millimeter 1911. It had a little bit of cycling issue with some of your lower powder charge 9 millimeters. The 10 millimeter does not have that problem. So if you get a chance and you have a friend who has a 10 millimeter, do yourself a favor. Buy a box of just some ball hollow point, ball Full Metal Jacket ammo, and try to look at the speeds and stuff on it. Like Underwood puts everything on the outside of the box. This one here is this one's pretty hot. This is a 1500 feet per second, 150 grain jacketed hollow points. This is a pretty hot 10 millimeter, but you could always find something that's more for target. There's some Full Metal Jackets, 1200 feet per second. In any of these weapons, you're not going to see much of a recoil, an impulse. So I think you'll enjoy giving it a chance. And once you try, at the very end of the day, worst thing you'll know is the $30 of ammunition. You'll know whether you can open up another door or maybe it's just not for you. All right, thank you for watching this, and have a good day.